Hey folks, my name's Sheridan, and I have opinions on this new Cordae project, the Crossroads. Cordae is a 27-year-old rapper from Raleigh, North Carolina that first hit the scene with a response to J. Cole's Lil Pump diss 1985. Initially, many perceived Cordae's response as a diss aimed at Cole, but eventually people started to realize it was more of a response and conversation starter about how the bridge can be gapped between older quote-unquote conscious rappers and what they would call mumble rappers. This video also revealed him to the public to be another member of the YBN collective along with Almighty J, who had seen quite a bit of underground success, and Namir, who had already had 2 bona fide hits rubbing off the paint and bounce out with that. They formed the collective online as friends who played GTA together, but didn't last all that long as a group as J lost all his steam. Namir went from by far the most popular of the three to by far the most clowned, and Cordae's music had matured to a point where he was musically incompatible with the others by 2020. His first solo record, The Lost Boy from 2019, was beloved by fans and really seemed like one of the reasons Cordae decided it was time to move on from the group. His second record though, 2022's From a Bird's Eye View, didn't receive nearly the same level of praise from fans or critics, and didn't have a memorable single or song to make up for it either. At that point, many folks, including myself, pretty much felt like Cordae was just the last former YBN member to fall into obscurity, so with his new record, The Crossroads, a lot of fans are giving Cordae one last chance to solidify his position in the industry. Here's what I think of the results. The first song is just a boring and somewhat generic 1-minute instrumental just called Intro. Nothing to report here, just a useless time waster. Thankfully, the second track, "Oh Six Dreaming," is immediately more inviting. The beat is a bit of a generic guitar loop that gets propped up by the dynamic drum and bass, but Cordae is a sincere storyteller on this one. He gives a bit of insight on what fueled his decision to follow this path by telling a heartfelt tale about his mother chasing her dreams to be a singer. In the first verse, he describes feeling her pain after being rejected by American Idol. He ties these dreams of making it as an artist to also being able to afford the things they want. Still, he notes that his mother's pursuit of making it in the industry left him lonely at times growing up, but as she continued to record demos and get no bites, he started writing himself. In the second verse, Cordae recalls another time when his mom was a contestant on Diddy's exploitative and abusive game show, Making the Band, that aired on ABC and MTV. She was in the 3rd season, where Diddy made contestants of a show that were trying to make it as musicians, run 6 miles as a form of public humiliation, and alludes to Diddy's recent controversy, implying it seems like karma is finally coming back to him. He spends the rest of the verse painting nostalgic imagery of the work he put in writing non-stop as he grew up that eventually led to his success. To wrap things up, he says plainly that he intended to make it big to honor his mother, who didn't get the opportunity to pursue her goals farther. The third song, Back on Road with Lil Wayne, is Cordae's first at a few attempts at a true banger on this track list. I think it's okay, but the hook is pretty generic and forgettable while also feeling way too reminiscent of a J. Cole song. Take this how you will, but Cordae also gets completely bodied by Wheezy on this, even if he makes up a small bit of ground with a super brief verse on the back end. The song has grown on me a little bit since first listen, mainly because of the Boca bar being funny and Wayne's verse being so good, but I don't see it staying in rotation for long. Cordae cools things down quite a bit with track 4 Summer Drop featuring Anderson .Paak. This one's another nostalgic viber that finds the duo reminiscing about how they spent their summers growing up with humble beginnings, starting with their adolescence and continuing the descriptions onto their teenage and even later years. I love the verses on this one, and it's catchy enough, but I find the horn sample to be a bit grating, and I think the song would greatly benefit from it being much less on top of the mix. I really don't get why this was a single, but still, I'll take anything I can get from Anderson. Moving on, the 5th song, Nothing's Promised, should be immediately recognizable to any old Kanye fans as it pretty directly but tastefully samples Heard 'Em Say, featuring Maroon 5 frontman Adam Levine. It's a smart move by Cordae, as that song is a major favorite among fans on one of Ye's best records in 2005's Late Registration. The title describes the song pretty well topically, as Cordae raps about staying focused, humble, and taking nothing for granted. He's clearly dealt with and is still weary about betrayal among those he grew up with or has love for, but want to leech off his success. Honestly, it would have been insanely difficult to fumble this god-tier sample, and Cordae very easily avoided that. And while not really holding a candle to the Ye and Levine collab, it's still very nice to listen to and a refreshing flip. Track 6, Mad as Fuck, is where I'm forced to admit that I just don't love when Cordae tries to make bangers. There's no justification for this being a single outside of shameless pandering, and I would bet anything that if Logic made this, y'all would rightfully and accurately fry him for it, because it's insanely corny. Lyrically, I'm brought to a state of cringe more often than I'm not, and I feel like I'm listening to an epic rap battle of history whenever I spin it. The hook feels especially contrived, and I really don't understand who let him make this thing damn near fucking 4 minutes. Why did we need 20 seconds of halftime at the end? This one should have stayed in the drive instead of being one of 6 damn singles. Thankfully, Cordae returns to his strengths on the 7th song, All Alone. I love how the sample of the legendary Luther Vandross classic, A House Is Not a Home, ties into Cordae's realizations about success and how money and material things are useless to him without someone to connect and share them with. At one point, he even tries to talk himself into the idea that all the finer things are worth the loneliness, but quickly backs down as he grapples with the idea of spending things like nice dinners and personal milestones alone. While not a new concept or exceptionally unique perspective from Cordae, he's able to personalize the story enough to make it sincere and engaging. It's probably easy to tell from the listed Juicy J feature on the 8th cut Never See It that he definitely turns up on this one. Cordae's verses are super crisp on this thing, and he's able to stay somewhat focused topically and continue to build his persona through a sense of authenticity, which I think goes over much better than him trying to dumb down his lyrics for a banger. I'm cool with dumb lyrics of all kinds as long as it sounds good, but Cordae's voice just isn't all that compatible with that style, and it doesn't feel as effortless for him as just being himself does. There's a really beautiful sample of a bit of a Barbara Mason deep cut from 1973, Who'd Ever Think, that effectively leads into Juicy J's goofy but fun hook that provides a bit of a peculiar contrast to Cordae's verses, but still works over pretty well if you don't think about it too much. I don't know. I might be caping a bit, but I have a lot of fun with this track. Cordae continues his run of impressively cleared samples on this record with track 9, Pray, that features Ty Dolla $ign. Dolla starts the song off with an emotionally paranoid pre-chorus that finds him dealing with the anxiety of losing someone he thought loved him if he were ever to not have the money he does now. This leads to the drop, featuring a flip of Lauryn Hill's haunting vocals from her immortal 1996 smash hit with the Fugees, Killing Me Softly. Ty sings about hoping he never has to know the answer to his worries on the hook before Cordae's verse, which applies immediate topical focus to his own personal experiences, whether fact or fiction. Cordae paints a picture of an intense connection he had with someone that burned out, leading her to move on. He describes having mutually hurt each other and expresses a desire to potentially rekindle a relationship with mild optimism, but doesn't actually reach a conclusion which works on this one, because it almost feels like a story that may have ended but feels unfinished to Cordae. Big W getting the Lauryn sample on this one, and I think Cordae does it justice. The 10th song, Don't Walk Away, features a super smooth and sensual hook from a fairly new and underknown R&B singer, Jordan Ward, and an equally sensual verse on the back end from another critic darling R&B newcomer, Raven Lenae. They both lyrically complement Cordae's sentiments of gleeful and near-obsessive love, while all three effectively glide across the delicate and vibrant production. There's nothing too intricate going on, but they all understood the assignment on this one and perfectly complemented each other to make for a super enjoyable slow jam. It's hard for me to say anything that hasn't already been said about the 11th cut Saturday Mornings with Lil Wayne, as it was the first single for the record, and despite dropping in July, feels like it's been out for a year. So I'll keep it short by saying Cordae stepped way the fuck up for this one, and was able to nearly keep up with Wheezy, who delivers one of his best verses in a few years. There isn't much of a topical focus on this cut as it feels more like a freestyle, but instead the duo decides to flex their lyrical prowess for 4.5 minutes. I don't think it's in the conversation for me, but I totally see why some have this as their song of the year. It's definitely some heat. 12th song, No Bad News, actually features a hook from Kanye, which is at least kind of fun. There's some cool beat switches on this one, and I love that Cordae isn't afraid to make an unapologetically positive song like he did for this. While sometimes it can come off as dorky, he really effectively conveys the message of taking everything in stride and finding silver linings without coming off as preachy or annoying. I just don't know how replayable it is for me though, because I feel like there's a lack of sonic cohesion between the verses and hook, which is honestly super jarring despite being reminiscent of old Ye. It's a cool song, I just think the execution could have been stronger. The 13th song, Shai Afeni, is dedicated to and named after Cordae's daughter with his partner and women's tennis star Naomi Osaka. The song opens a bit reminiscent of Stevie Wonder's Isn't She Lovely with some baby cries and says he wrote it 2 weeks after her birth. This cut acts not only as a celebration of his daughter's birth, but also a promise to protect her throughout her life. He also shares his intention to immortalize his experiences through music, so she always has a frame of reference to look back on and learn more about her dad. I also gotta mention that I love that he calls out the abusive, violent, and talentless R&B hack Trey Songz casually by using him as an example of the type of men to stay away from. Cordae has always seemed to me to see past the bullshit, and I love that he confirms that whenever he calls out clowns and clown behavior. In general though, I love how genuine this track feels, and I think it's a really special gift for his daughter to be able to cherish forever and likely appreciate more and more as she gets older. The 14th song, What Really Matters, continues the streak of more heartfelt cuts and puts things into perspective. Cordae essentially spends most of the 2-minute runtime to list the important things in his life and airs out some of the regrets he has about choosing his career over being there for his family. I still think this song feels more like a refocusing and constructive reminder than an overall regretful sentiment though. The tone of the messaging and A Spectrum's 1974 hit I Don't Want to Play Around both set a brighter mood than some of the darker subject matters might suggest. I appreciate the sentiment of this one, but it's a bit too brief to really stand out in the track list. Approaching the end of the record, track 15, Syrup Sandwiches with Joey Badass, is solid, but the beat is a bit barren and there isn't really any thematic focus going on. The hook is pretty catchy, but both rappers' verses, while not being bad by any means, kind of just breeze by unexceptionally. It's just the definition of a forgettable song. The closing track, Now You Know, does its job beautifully by wrapping up many of the sentiments Cordae expressed throughout the record into a nostalgic love letter to his grandma who passed away. Cordae, while not the most gifted singer, manages to deliver a delicately pretty hook and summarize some of the things that made his grandma amazing to him as he updates her on some major life events in his life since she's been gone. I think the short and sweet but touching approach to the outro fits perfectly in the context of what this record is going for narratively. One thing that's clear about this new Cordae record is that it's his best so far. That being said, I still should acknowledge acknowledge that I was very wrong about him being just a flash in a pan like I expected when he first hit the scene. One of my worst predictions ever, even considering my feeble teenage brain at the time, was that Almighty J would end up the most successful member of the YBN collective when he ended up being very easily the least of the most significant three. I seriously underestimated Cordae's room for growth, dedication to his craft, and down-to-earth humility that has helped lead him to a lot of prolific networking opportunities, from legendary features to insanely iconic samples being easily clear. The Crossroads is the first record from Cordae that comes off as remotely cohesive and doesn't fall quite as deep into the commercial trap of trying too hard to make a hit, even if there still are a couple of those instances. With all that being said, I've got to give this thing at least a 7.45 out of 10. All right, y'all, that's another review. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell, share with friends, do all that good stuff. Let me know what you want to see in the next video. The next one is actually going to be in a different location. Going to be pretty fun. I'm going to be visiting my family, so going to figure out how to set the studio up there. We'll see. Thanks for watching.